He opened the front door, but the house spoke before he did. Jonathan Reed, 43. CEO. A name that silenced boardrooms, stood in the foyer and listened to a child's voice drift down the hall. It was careful, steady, and alive. His son's voice. He didn't call out. He set his keys on the marble console without a sound. Again, a woman said, her voice low and calm. Just like that. I am Evan, the boy replied. The sound touched a place inside Jonathan he hadn't dared to touch in 2 years. He followed the voices. The living room light was on, not harsh. The kind of light left on intentionally. On the coffee table sat a small, open tin box. 3 index cards with words in marker lay face up. A glass of water with a straw. A folded handkerchief. Evan sat on the edge of the sofa, feet planted on the rug, his back straight as if by conscious effort. His eyes were fixed on the woman in a simple sweater who sat across from him. She held nothing, made no move to touch him. She waited. Good, the woman said. Breathe first. I am Evan, the boy repeated. Not a whisper, not a shout. Precise. The woman looked up and saw Jonathan. Her pupils contracted. She rose to her feet not in alarm, but like a nurse rising so as not to tilt a tray. Mr. Reed, Evan flinched, grabbing the corner of the handkerchief and pushing it into the seam of the sofa cushion. He stared at his lap. The cards were silent. The room was not. Jonathan couldn't make his mouth work. He hadn't heard Evan's voice since the night the ambulance had painted the driveway red and white. Since that night, he had learned to arrange his grief into a schedule, filling his days with noise so it wouldn't echo back. At the office, it worked. At home, it didn't. The woman's voice remained even. We were just finishing up. He nodded, the only gesture that wouldn't shatter the air. Card 2, she said softly. Evan picked up the second card. He didn't look up. I am safe. The words pierced Jonathan like a tightening cord. He realized he was still standing in the doorway, as if the room had rules he hadn't read. She waited for Evan's breathing to settle. Last one. Evan found the third card. His fingers trembled, and he pressed his thumb into his palm, a trick someone had taught him to anchor a small panic. The tremor subsided. He placed the card down, looked at it, but didn't speak. That's enough for today, she said. You did it. Evan nodded. He put the cards in the box and closed the lid with both hands. He stood, eyes still on the floor, and walked past Jonathan without touching him. The hallway swallowed the sound of his small feet. A bedroom door closed politely, carefully, like a child trying not to disturb a house that wasn't his. Jonathan didn't turn to watch his son go. He looked at the woman. How long? 3 months, she said. After his homework. 15 minutes. No more. Who told you to do this? His voice was cold before he could choose another. No one, she said. He asked me to listen. I'm Maria Lopez. The name fit the sweater, the steady hands, the unremarkable shoes. He was the one who had approved her file 6 months ago. He remembered the email confirming her references and start date, scanned as he was getting into a car. He didn't remember this. What are these? He pointed at the cards because he didn't dare point at his son. Simple sentences, Maria answered. You use them until they stick. Why you? Why not the specialists I paid for? Maria didn't flinch. They're good at their jobs. But he wasn't looking at them. He was looking at me. Jonathan's jaw tightened. The part of him used to controlling boardrooms wanted to rise. You changed my son's schedule without my permission. I added 15 minutes for him to be heard, she said. If you had been here, I would have told you. Not a hint of anger. She stated it like a timestamp. The words settled on the table next to the tin box. He exhaled through his nose and walked to the chair opposite hers. He didn't sit. "What else?" "We walk in the garden," she said. He names what he sees, short sentences. The cards are in the tin box, so they belong to him. I remind him this house is not a test. "What does that mean?" "He touches things, as if the wrong move will make something explode," she said. So we practice touching things, without waiting for the room to change. Of the floor beneath Jonathan tilted by an imperceptible degree. He looked at the mantelpiece. A school flyer was pinned to the corner of a photo frame. "Family reading night, authorized pickup, M. Lopez." He pulled it down. The paper was soft at the edges. The way paper gets when it's held many times by someone afraid to put it down where it won't be seen. "Why is your name here?" "The driver was late, so I picked him up," Maria said. "The school needed a name on file." "Nah, you didn't think to tell me?" The cold snapped back on like a switch. "I left the flyer on your desk. It's still there." He pictured the desk in his study. A stack of untouched papers, a motionless pen, a glass with a water ring. No one dared clear away because it looked like proof someone had once been there. He put the flyer back, face up. He looked at the tin box. "Open it." She did. Inside was a neat stack of cards. The first, "I am Evan." The second, "I am safe." The third, "I can try." The fourth had a light pencil line drawn across the middle, a guide for straight lettering. "Who wrote them?" "He did," Maria said. "I spell the words if he asks." "Where were you trained?" Jonathan needed everything connected to his son to be free of guesswork. "My cousin stopped talking after his father left," she said. "No one listened to him without trying to fix him. I learned to sit still. He talked to me first. Then he talked to others. It took time." "How old was he?" 9. "And Evan is 9. "Yes." Jonathan's eyes landed on the glass of water. The straw was bent where a small mouth had bitten it. 2 coasters were stacked. A child's mistake, corrected by an adult without comment. The handkerchief was folded into a perfect square, aligned with the edge of the table. As straight as a line a boy tries to draw when his hands are still shaking. "I didn't know he could." He stopped, because finishing the sentence meant admitting what he hadn't done. He changed his approach. "Where does this go?" "To the place where he believes it," Maria said. "If you're here, it goes further." He looked at her. She said it like she was reading a spreadsheet. No judgment, just data. "What do I have to do?" he said. The question felt foreign, like speaking someone else's language. 15 minutes in the morning, she replied. "Not long. He'll say more if he sees you can sit for 15 minutes without looking at anything else." I have..." He swallowed the excuse like something with sharp edges. She nodded, as if the gesture itself was a lesson. "He needs a rule," she said. "If you say you'll be there, be there. If you can't, don't say it." He stood. Not because the conversation was over, but because he didn't know what else to stand next to without breaking it. He looked down the hall Evan had taken. The runner on the carpet had been smoothed by small hands. Shoes on the rack were lined up toe-to-toe like soldiers, 2 pairs. His own were still by the door from last week, dust on the heels. "How does he talk to you?" he asked, the words catching. "Like before," she said. "Short. Precise. When he's done, he doesn't look away. He waits to see if someone will erase his words by talking over them." He pictured the boardroom table, where his voice filled every gap before others could breathe. Then he imagined that habit falling into this house like a kind of weather. Maria closed the lid and placed the box back at the edge of the table, near where Evan had Saturday a habit. Position mattered to someone who was always afraid what they had would be taken away. 7 a.m., she said. "If you're going to be here," he should have been insulted. He wasn't. "I'll be there." It wasn't a hope. It sounded like a commitment. That night, he went upstairs. The hallway was lit by a single low lamp, the kind of light for a child finding the bathroom without waking the whole floor. He stopped before the door he hadn't opened in 3 days. He knocked. He didn't know why he was knocking on a door in his own house, but he did. Yes? A small voice. He opened it. Evan was on the bed, shoes off, a thin book open in his lap, the spine pressed flat. He wasn't reading. He was just holding it to give his hands something to do. The small stack of cards sat by his lamp. The top one read, "I am safe." He stood in the doorway, because to step all the way in felt like asking to sit on a park bench someone else had gotten to first. "I heard you," he said. Downstairs, Evan's eyes flickered up, then back to the page. His thumb pressed into his palm again. "I'll be in the kitchen at 7, Jonathan said. "If you want to practice there, I'll sit with you." "Oh." Evan's shoulders shifted slightly the way they do when a thought has just landed and hasn't settled yet. He nodded without looking up. "Good night," Jonathan said. "Good night," Evan replied. One clean, small sound. It lifted a part of his chest off the floor he hadn't known was lying there. He closed the door, letting the latch find its place without clicking. He stood in the hall looking at the framed photos. There was one with him still in it. 3 years ago, a new suit, a child on his shoulders, a woman beside him who softened the room. In the last year, Evan stood alone, or with Maria, at events described as parent attendance, encouraged but not required. Until now, he had treated them like a to-do list he paid someone else to remember. Tonight, they looked like a ledger he had never opened. He didn't go to his study. That was the room of emails and of blocking the door with numbers. He went to the kitchen. The chef had left a note, reheating instructions, a foil-covered tray in the fridge, dated as if it were a given that a man who came home late would eat cold food. He didn't open it. He poured a glass of water and drank it standing up because he didn't know where to sit in his own kitchen if no one told him. The staff corridor was silent. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the silence of a hotel at 2 a.m. Work done, lights low, footsteps soft. Don't wake what doesn't need to be woken. He opened the back door and stepped into the garden. The air was cool and clean without trying. 3 saplings by the stone path had new ties. Someone had replaced them. He hadn't asked. He also hadn't noticed they needed it. On the back patio, a folded scooter leaned against the wall, a child's possession placed with care, not locked away with the adult machines. Here, where someone could get it himself, without a key. He went inside and looked at the kitchen clock. 9:11 p.m. He put his phone face down on the counter and left it there. At 6:20 a.m., he woke up before the alarm he rarely used at home. He shaved quickly, put on a dark sweater. A suit felt like noise right now. Walking into the kitchen, he stopped short. 2 bowls were already set, a plate of small, sliced apples between them, proof that morning had a script here he hadn't written. Maria came in from the patio with a basket of clean towels. "Mr. Reed." Maria. He wanted to say more. He didn't. He sat at the end of the table, not the head. Evan came down the stairs without running. He paused on the bottom step, looking at his father like one might look at a strange dog. He walked to the chair opposite Maria's, sat straight, and didn't fidget. He looked at the plate of apples, as if waiting for it to ask a question. Maria placed the tin box where Evan could reach it with his left hand. She didn't open it. She waited. Evan opened it himself, taking out the first card. He didn't look up. "I am Evan." Jonathan placed his hands flat on his thighs to keep them from instinctively reaching for his phone. He watched his son's mouth form the words. It wasn't a miracle. It was like watching a craftsman repair something small. "Good," Maria said. Breathe. Evan pressed his thumb, released, inhaled slowly, and chose the next card. I am safe. A knot formed in Jonathan's throat. He didn't swallow. He didn't disturb the air. A truck rumbled by outside. The kitchen held steady. The last one, Maria said. If you want, Evan looked at the card longer this time. I can try. Maria nodded. That's enough. Evan put the cards away, took a slice of apple, and ate it in 3 careful bites. Jonathan realized he'd been holding his breath and let it go. He poured coffee with a steady hand. He didn't ask how anyone took it. Asking felt like admitting he knew anything about the mornings here. Maria stood. I'll get his lunchbox. She walked away, leaving father and son alone. Evan looked at his father's hands. You're staying? He asked. Jonathan looked at his son and didn't look away. I'm staying. Evan nodded. He ate a little slower. Maria returned with 2 paper bags folded with the same number of creases. She set them by the door. She didn't speak to fill the room. She glanced at the clock, then at Jonathan. After breakfast, he likes to take a walk. No phone. Okay. The 3 of them walked to the door. The driver was already opening the car door. Jonathan said, We'll walk today. The school was an 8-minute walk. The car idled at the end of the drive in case of rain. Evan walked on the inside, away from the curb. He looked at the house numbers, counting under his breath. He didn't look at his father. Jonathan matched his pace. He didn't reach for his phone. He didn't try to fill the silence. He let it stand between them like a person they were both getting to know. At the corner, by a red mailbox, Evan's steps shortened. He pressed his fingers into his palm, then released. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Jonathan waited. Evan looked up, met his father's eyes for exactly 1 second, then looked away. 1 second that felt like a direct question from a judge. He held the gaze. He didn't fill it with words. At the school gate, the administrator looked at Maria out of habit. Morning, Miss Lopez. Early today? Maria nodded. Yes. He's heading straight to class. She accepted a stamped slip of paper. She handed it to Evan. Jonathan said, Thank you. The administrator started, then looked up at him. Morning, mister. Reed. The name came out awkwardly, as if just remembered. Morning. Jonathan didn't smile. He looked at Evan. I'll be at the table tomorrow at 7. Evan nodded. He didn't speak in front of the person with the stamp. He touched Maria's sleeve for a second, then walked toward the 3rd grade hallway. He didn't look back. He didn't need to prove it twice. That day at the office, every meeting felt like a room he belonged to a little less than the day before. The language was the same: margins, integration, momentum. He said the words. He approved a plan. He finalized a report. But time flowed differently. He noticed the thin veneer of exhaustion under a VP's eyes, the way his assistant stood when she said, I've handled it. The look on a young manager's face when he realized that for the first time this month, he was actually being heard. He had built a place where his voice did the work of 10 men. He had also built a place where 10 men watched his mouth to know what the day meant. At lunch, a notification flashed on his screen. A cheap gossip site had a picture of him holding his son's backpack. Cold CEO gone soft? Reed plays house. The comments piled up like cigarette butts. He closed the tab. He didn't call legal. He didn't call PR. He put his phone face down on the desk and worked until the hours formed an even shape. That night, a snide article popped up again. The next morning, his reflex to command rose before he remembered how to sit still. At 7, the tin box was in its place. Evan opened it. I am even. I am safe. Jonathan leaned forward slightly. Can you look at me when you say it? Evan's fingers tightened on the card's edge, making it bend. Maria spoke softly. Let him choose, sir. The looking will come when he's ready. Jonathan turned to her, his voice hard. I'm his father. Maria held his gaze. Yes, but a command is not what he needs right now. Evan ducked his head like a witness with no right to speak. No one shouted, but the morning fractured. Jonathan swallowed the apology he was about to make. That afternoon, another photo circulated. Power on the trading floor, awkward at home. He didn't respond. That evening he came home early and just sat while his son did his math homework. This time he didn't pull out a new math book. He asked, "How did you solve this one?" Evan explained in 3 precise, unadorned sentences. He made a mistake, then corrected it himself. Jonathan stayed quiet, letting the sound of pencil on paper become the sound of the house. They both breathed out. Maria, whom Jonathan had approved for the position of governess and after-school caregiver, didn't replace the chef. She managed the schedule, did the 15 minutes with Evan, and handled pickups when the driver was stuck. In the evenings, Jonathan would see the dated meal container, a small flower in a water glass by Evan's place setting, the neatly arranged backpack. He passed them like exhibits in a museum of a life he wasn't living. At school, teachers and parents approached Maria first out of habit. Jonathan updated the contact list, but the habits at the front desk didn't change overnight. He accepted that it would take time for the system to understand he would be there. One afternoon, his assistant buzzed. "A Mr. Marcus Hale is here to see you. Private, urgent." Hale, the famously cold CEO of a rival firm, rarely made personal visits. His assistant had already emailed an offer. Hale walked in, his suit perfectly tailored, his smile not reaching his eyes. He opened a file. "I hear you have a gem in your household. The girl Maria Lopez, the one who got your boy talking again. I want to hire her for my nephew. Long-term contract, triple her salary, separate housing, car, driver. She's not for sale," Jonathan said. "Everything has a price," Hale smirked. "You're trusting your son's future to someone. Uncertified? Let me give her a real opportunity. You can hire someone else to do the cleaning." "Get out," Jonathan said, his voice flat as a blade. Hale collected his file, still smiling. "I know her family has its difficulties. Put enough money on the table, and loyalty is just a temporary story." He left, leaving the air thick behind him. That evening, Maria knocked on the library door. She was holding the offer letter. "They've promised enough money for my mother and my brother." Evan, who had been eavesdropping outside, rushed in and hugged Maria. "Don't go." For the first time, his voice was thick with tears. "I haven't answered," Maria said, hugging him back. Jonathan stood there, watching his son beg someone else to stay, while he, the boy's father, stood motionless. The injustice of it hit him squarely in the chest. The next day, Jonathan canceled 3 meetings. "Family first," he told his assistant, who froze in shock. He came home just as Evan was practicing a longer sentence. "My name is Evan Reed." He knelt to his son's eye level. "I hear you." Evan looked at Maria first. She nodded. He whispered, "Yes." That night, Jonathan called Maria in. "Hale is offering 10 times what I pay you. But I'm not letting you go. Not because I need a housekeeper, but because Evan does. I will cover your brother's tuition and your mother's rent. It's not charity. It's because you've earned it." Maria was silent, her eyes wet. "You trust me that much?" "I don't just trust you. I need you." One Monday morning, a school notice was placed next to the tin box. "Recital, next month. Students could read a poem, sing, or tell a story. Jonathan picked it up. Is Evan participating? Evan sat still, his hand on a card. Maria said gently, his teacher wants to encourage him. It's an opportunity. An opportunity for people to laugh at him? Jonathan's voice was cold. Evan shrank back. Maria placed a hand on the edge of the table. Or an opportunity for him to be heard. Evan looked up, a fragile hope flickering in his eyes. Jonathan sighed. If you truly want to, I want to try. 3 words assembled without a card. Jonathan was stunned. Week 1. After dinner, Maria brought out 4 and 5-line poems. Evan read slowly, stumbled, then improved. Jonathan sat at the opposite end of the table. At first, he just watched. Then, occasionally, he'd offer something small. Breathe here. Week 2. Evan had memorized half the poem. One evening, he threw the paper down. It's too hard, Jonathan was about to say. Don't quit. But Maria placed a hand on his arm, shook her head, and then sat beside Evan. When it's hard, we rest a minute. Then we try again. No one is asking you to be perfect. Evan wiped his eyes and picked up the paper. Jonathan watched, a mix of admiration and bitter envy. His son found his courage in Maria first. Week 3. At the school gate, the rumors started. The mute kid is going on stage? Mr. Reed must have bought him an award. Jonathan heard them, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. That night, he went into Evan's room. It doesn't matter what they say. On stage, there's only one job. You speak. They have to listen. Evan looked directly into his father's eyes. For the first time. Dress rehearsal. 3 days to go. Backstage, Evan was shaking. Jonathan knelt. I'm right here. If you look out, just look at me. Evan's eyes welled with tears. But he walked out. He froze mid-poem. Jonathan wanted to rush out, but Maria squeezed his arm. Let him stand. Evan finished. The applause was sparse but real. The auditorium was packed. The whispers were like sand. Evan sat between his father and Maria, his hand crumpling the paper. His name was called. He stood, walked onto the stage, and squinted into the lights. The paper shook. His mouth opened no sound. A few small laughs. A child whispered, "He can't talk." Jonathan stood up. "Evan, look at me." His voice was steel, echoing through the room. Every eye turned to him. He didn't care. "I believe in you. No one else matters. Just say it for me." Evan blinked, a tear breaking at the corner of his eye. He took a breath. "The sky is blue." The voice trembled, but was audible. A soft "oh" went through the crowd. "The leaves are green." Steadier now. Jonathan held his gaze, nodding with every word. Evan clutched the paper, then spoke louder than ever before. "My name is Evan Reed. I am safe. I can try." A long, deep silence. Then applause erupted. Not out of pity, because they had just watched a child stand tall. Jonathan didn't clap. He buried his face in his hands, tears streaming through his fingers. The man who was once all sharp edges now sat shaking with pride. Maria covered her mouth, her eyes red. Evan looked out, saw his father crying, and he smiled the first smile for his father in years. The press changed its tone. Some sneered. A miracle, thanks to the help. But this time, Jonathan answered directly in a long-form interview. There was no miracle. There was a brave boy and a patient woman. I was lucky enough to learn how to be a father again from them. And The financial world was stunned. The famously cold man had admitted weakness. But in Evan's eyes, as he read the article, Jonathan saw a flicker of pride. One afternoon, Jonathan called Maria into the library. He didn't use his command voice. "Starting today, you are more than an employee. I'm funding your formal education in speech therapy. While you study, you'll remain here with Evan. Your family, your mother and brother, I will support them. This isn't a handout. It's because the work you do deserves to be recognized." Maria was flustered, tears falling. "I never thought I'd have this chance. You changed our lives first." In the mornings that followed, Jonathan didn't rush out. He poured his son's milk. One day, Evan said he didn't need the cards. He looked straight at his father. "I'm safe when I'm with you." Jonathan didn't answer right away. He just hugged his son. He'd received 1,000 accolades in his life. None weighed as much as that sentence. On the weekend, the three of them went into the garden. Jonathan brought a sapling. "We'll plant this here, to remember every day that we started over." Evan dug the hole. Maria held the young tree straight. Jonathan filled the earth, his hands trembling but steady. Looking at the tree in the sun, Evan said quietly, "Tomorrow, it will be bigger." Jonathan put a hand on his son's shoulder. "Yes, so will you." At a charity gala later, people whispered, "Isn't that his housekeeper?" Jonathan looked at them directly. "You can buy this entire ballroom, but none of you could make my son say a single word." She did. "If you don't understand the value in that, we have nothing to talk about." The room went quiet. Maria looked up, surprised. Evan smiled the second smile for his father. Marcus Hale still called. Maria hung up. "He won't give up. I'm afraid one day I won't be able to resist." "Oh." Jonathan's hand tightened. "I won't let that happen. I've lost too much already." For the first time, a flicker of trust appeared in Maria's eyes. Maria received her acceptance letter to the speech therapy program. Jonathan made a small dinner in the garden. Evan ran around. "Maria's going to be a real teacher." Maria laughed through tears. "I didn't think my life could change like this." Jonathan replied, "You changed ours first." At the office, Jonathan was still sharp when he needed to be, but he cut the 16-hour days. His assistant blocked out his mornings and evenings as fixed for Evan. An investor frowned once. Jonathan's voice was cold. "No deal is more important than me being home." One evening, Jonathan asked his son, standing before the sapling that was now chest high, "What do you want most right now?" Evan thought for a moment. "Just to play catch with you." Jonathan laughed the first real, relaxed laugh. The two of them threw a ball under the porch light. Maria watched from the doorway, smiling. There was no audience, no need for applause. There was only this. The way home had been found. Night fell. The wind made a soft, rustling sound in the leaves. The house was lit, no longer somber. The sound of Evan's laughter carried from the kitchen. Maria was teaching him a new word. Jonathan closed his eyes and breathed in. He had built towers for the world, but it turned out a small voice at home was the only reason to live. He turned off the light over the sink. The hallway light stayed on to guide a child. On the photo frame on the wall, the reading night pickup, M. Lopez flyer was still there, a reminder. He didn't take it down. Tomorrow morning, he would bring a new form to the table, and two names would sit side by side, Jonathan Reed and Maria Lopez. Not to compete for a role, but to hold a home together. The next morning, at 6:59, Jonathan sat at the kitchen table. The tin box was in its place. Evan came down, his shirt slightly untucked. He pulled the box toward him, opened the lid, and turned over the first card. "I am Evan." The sound was small but solid. Maria nodded like a coach who knew the shape of progress. Jonathan said nothing. He just sat still for the full 15 minutes, his hands on his thighs. When Evan looked up, not searching for anyone else, he smiled a short, sufficient smile. The morning held. The house held. And a man finished the hardest lesson of his life, to sit still so the person he loved could finish a sentence.